Hello everyone, and welcome back to Totally Broken Opinions, a solo review. It's been a while. Today's episode is going to be not what I originally had planned, because I didn't end up seeing half the things I originally had planned, and neither has Dan. So Dan's not here, and he'll be back next week, I think. But yeah, so what originally this was going to be was, I think, Beetlejuice, and then something else was going to be at some point. But yeah, I ended up not... that was it. It was going to be the Wolf movie with Brad Pitt and George Clooney, but that didn't end up happening because it's not out yet. And I don't know when it's out, in the UK at least, because I can't see it on any listings for cinemas. So, but it's apparently out on the 26th, so who knows. But anyway, I don't know if I'll end up doing that. That was just something to tide the times. But luckily, Zack Synder came out with something recently. Twilight of the Gods. This is a full spoiler review. Honestly, I really enjoyed this. I'm going to be honest, I don't really like Zack Synder as a director. I haven't really enjoyed much of his stuff. I think a lot of it's fine, a lot of it is terrible. At least to me. I know some people love him a lot, but I really enjoyed this. I have some nitpicks with it, which I'll get into detail a bit more later on, but ultimately, this is a really nice art style. The story and the characters are good, and overall, I liked the world. I think a lot of it is good. But yeah, so this is basically a Norse god story, Norse mythology, as it's described. Zack Synder brought ancient wars to life in an epic 300 in the epic 300. Now he reimagines Norse mythology in his raw and violent tale of gods, mortals, and giants. But yeah, so let's just get straight into spoilers. Basically, it starts with a Norse woman who is a half human, half giant, who gets put on the battlefield, leaves her home to go join the humans because she doesn't fit in, and all of this is explained later on. Because at the beginning, it's just a mysterious woman comes out to help fight on a battlefield as the war chief is describing the tale. A lot of it is tales, like they tell as like a flashback narrative. It's people telling stories of like things that have happened and all of that, because that's easy to do. So she comes in. She helps defeat this, change the tides of the war that was going on. She falls in love with the chief dude who's in charge, or like a warrior on the battlefield, basically, at the time. And then they're finally going to get married. They end up going back to the Giants, where she's from, to get the wedding done. And then Thor comes down and just wipes out her entire family of giants, killing everyone, because I can't remember the reason. I think he just wanted to kill giants because there's been the tension between giants and the gods for a while, and it just ends up that he slaughters everyone on her wedding day. The person Sigrid, and yeah, absolute decimation. And then she gets dragged to hell, basically, because Loki and his kids are scheming to basically rewrite his history or rewrite the future, or like get a new future and basically stop Odin, stop Thor, get all of this stuff. Yeah, I really like Norse mythology. I think it's one of the interesting ones. That and Greek, like the gods. I think that, to me, religion is always more interesting when there's flawed stuff. Like, a perfect being has never been appealing to me as like a religious like thing, and they're all stories to me, which is blasphemous to a lot of people, but it is to me. It's just a lot of stories. Like like 100 years, like 1,000 years ago, or however long Norse mythology was. I don't know the specifics. They're all just blend into one. But those stories were believed by people the same way current day religions are believed by people. It's just the timing is different. So to me, who knows in 200,000 years what people will believe in and whatnot. So it's always weird to fight over them. But this one seems more real. Like these seem always more realistic. Like gods are cunts, and they're just more powerful beings that live in a place that everyone can get to just easily. But like not easily, but you have to go through some process to get there rather than dying, essentially. But let's just talk about visuals for now, because that's what I really wanted to talk about. I love animation. Animation is just such a cool art form. To like, you can do so much with it. And everyone like complains about CGI being bad now. It's like they just don't have time. And like animation departments don't have time, but drawing is unlimited potential. And that's what CGI could be. Like CGI can be unlimited potential more realistically. It's just they don't have the time and the thing. And animation doesn't have the time, but it's not trying to be realistic. It's got a flair to it. That's why I like it, because it's just... I don't love realism. Realism bores me. I can look at the real world and go, yep, that's the real world. So stuff that looks kind of real, I'm like, eh. Whereas looking at stuff like this where body proportions are weirdly, like, out, well, not out, but, like, you got jacked, chiseled gods with massive, like, flowing hair, and they can teleport, and they can phase, and they can, like, the fluidity of their battles. It's always more interesting to me than just, like, this is the realism. Like, that's why Call of Duty got boring to me, is they just made everything real. And I'm like, I could do that in the real world. And some people do, and it's terrifying. But this is just fun. So, yeah, after that, they basically... Okay, so this is my first complaint. The first episode is okay, it's the setup. I understand that. The second episode is everyone goes and finds the team montage thing. Zack Snyder loves a getting the team together moment, I guess, because it happens in Justice League. It happens in that Rebel Moon, apparently. It's in the zombie movie, Dawn of the Dead. No, not Dawn of the Dead. Army of the Dead. It's in that. He loves just having people get together in... I don't know, really uninteresting ways, I guess, at least in this one. And also, I feel like it's missing some stuff, because there's some character stuff that isn't very well explained at the beginning, because you basically get introduced to a lot of them after, like, in the first episode. And then there are some reveals that just don't make sense in terms of the character, like, revelations. My main thing is, Egil, who's like the bard person who's the thing. It's basically set up, at least from my interpretation, when you first meet him, he seems like friends with the king. But then apparently later on, there's this big contention that the king used to be like a murderous guy. And that's a lot of the character for that guy, is he used to be like this blood slaughtering, like Norse Viking type guy. And he basically killed Egil's dad and took him as a slave, basically. But I don't think it's ever mentioned in the earlier episodes before that revelation happens that they're slaves. They seem to be good buddies. It doesn't seem like a master-slave, like a master-servant situation. It just seems like they call on him to be their buddy. He's got free reign. He's not like anything. It just seems weird that it's just suddenly brought up that, oh yeah, no, this guy is a slave. And then immediately after that, it just turns around and he goes, yeah, no, I free you now. You don't have to do any of this. Which I didn't think, I thought it was I didn't think it was a mandatory thing, because everyone else kind of just goes, yeah, I'll come along. So it's not very clearly laid out that it's that kind of dynamic. It just seems like they're friends and they're buddies. And they also seem the same age. So it's kind of like, oh, okay. I didn't realize this guy was much younger. The other one is kind of like they go visit a dwarf to go get god-killing weapons, because this guy's basically making god-killing weapons. And then they kind of just they're like, oh, we're meant to have like this amount of people. And one of them jokes, and then the guy just comes up afterward, after basically saying he's not going to do it. Oh, no, I'll come along. Like, oh, okay, cool, you're coming. So it just seems like they needed a way to bring all these people together, and they didn't really have, like, a thing. There's another bit where they find a town that has, like, a family who has captured this girl, and because they're being hunted by the gods, basically, and they're trying to find the other what are they called? I can't remember what they're called. It's all Norse words and my brain can't handle different words. They basically are trying to find the other, like, ancient gods, not the ones who Odin basically defeated to win his war, and took the bride, Freya. Freya is the bride. Is that Odin's wife? Yeah, Freya. So yeah, and then all of that stuff. They're trying to find that basically, and then they jump around and basically they find this village that's been basically decimated, and then they find this small little housing thing, and then it's all just like, oh, there's just a woman in here. Oh, we need to leave her. Oh, I'm gonna go get her, and then it just kind of ends up with the main lady and the main guy wanting to bang her, basically. And it's like, okay, this didn't seem very well developed. That's the one. Okay, the one thing I find funny about animation is the only way that they can make animation adult is to put a sex scene in it. That's the only way they ever seem to be able to make an adult animated thing. Because blood doesn't matter if it's animated; it doesn't appear violent. So many shows that are adult. I don't know if this is everything, but so many shows that I've watched where they're trying to be like the 18 or 15 plus range, they always put a sex scene, or they always show like tits and boobs and dick or something. Like, these aren't bad shows, but there's like, Arcane doesn't do it, but they have a sex scene. Like, they don't show tits or penis or anything like that. Blue Eye Samurai does it. Castlevania does it. This did it. There's more. Like, so many shows when they're trying to be like adult just put a sex scene in just to go, yeah, this is what people classify as adult. This is how we differentiate ourselves from being the kids version. There's sex in it, and it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. It's just always funny to me that that's the thing, because it's always so out of place. It always just feels like, that's why they did it, because they needed, like, Castlevania, it comes out of nowhere. What was it? Blue Eye Samurai, it's a lot of the thing. It's because it's a lot of dark topics, and it's like sex, prostitution, and stuff like that. This is like love, and then joke. There's a joke where Egil is fucking a girl, and then it turns out he's being fucked in the ass by another guy. And I'm like, oh, cool, that's fine. That's funny. But it also tells you about his character and stuff like that, because there's a bit where you get his backstory, and apparently in that time it's like, yeah, you can fuck a man, but you don't want to be fucked by the man. It's a dominance thing. It's, if you're the dominant one, you fuck the man, but you don't be fucked by the guy, basically. So he wants yeah, it's a whole thing. Cyberpunk as well. Cyberpunk has a sex scene. Yeah, there's so many examples in my head, like that you got to have a sex scene in it. It's not a problem. I always just find it funny. It's always just so funny to me. But yeah, so so the other characters are the witch lady and the Wolfman. Wolfman is my favorite character because you get nothing on him except like he's just crazy, and then you get bits and pieces, and you have like there's a story that's basically he might have eaten his son. It's implied, but he doesn't. I don't think. He's just like bad, and then he just turns into a wolfman. He's just basically wearing a wolf pelt the entire time, and he works for the witch lady, and then he basically can transform into a wolf and help fight armies. And I just think his character's good, and then they just either kill him or because okay, so there's a few things. So spoilers again, even though I've spoiled most of this anyway. So the big climactic battle where the gods are fighting, weirdly paced, because this is split multiple times, because that's the thing I find is that the pacing of this show is a bit weird, because so many times they go do something, they get to a point, and then it just cuts, and then it's the aftermath. So many of the battles, they do like a big, I'm sure this is budget and also the limited amount of time that they have. They've got to get it, because they only have 8 episodes, whereas if they'd had like 24 or 10 or 20 or something, just a more number, they could have probably spread this out and made this story more cohesive in certain places. Like, they could have done an episode or 2 episodes where they actually went and got people and actually gave them backstory and like stuff, rather than trying to intersect it into the story further on. But yeah, so a lot of the time you get to a battle and then they cut, and like they're in an epic moment, or like they're in a moment where they can't escape, or it looks like they're cornered, or the battle is going to continue going on, and then it cuts, and then it's them in a campsite, and they're all fine, and like no one's... There's a moment where they're basically running away because they infiltrated Force Camp under like Loki's order. Like, they basically break in through the wall, they sneak in. She's abandoned her husband because she's worried she can't love him because she's only set on revenge, and they break in. He follows. They all come in. They all fight. They all find four. Four kills. No, four basically gets alerted. Basically, she goes in to try and stab him. He gets alerted, and comes out. And then it's like, oh no, we got to run. And then so they run, and then Loki basically turns up because Loki's been orchestrating all of this. And then kills the dwarf guy, who's also set on revenge against Loki, and decides to throw everything away to try and attack the guy. And Loki then just crushes his head. And then it's like they're trying to get away, and then it's just like, cut. Oh, they're in the campsite talking. And it's like, you didn't want to show them get out even though they're being pursued? You just kind of accept that they get out? Even though the situation seemed to be that they needed Loki to come in. I guess Loki just came in and saved. There's another one where they're on the battlefield. The Force just killed the leader of the other older gods. Either the ex-lover or brother of Freya. Because Freya was taken as like the prize, as Odin's prize for winning the war. And so she's her ex like lover or brother, I can't remember what the relationship was, but he dies, and everyone's just standing around watching it. And then I guess everyone was allowed to go home because the next scene is basically them at the campfire again. So it's so many weird things of like this utter defeat or this utter like inescapable thing, and I don't think they could work out how to do it, so they just went, nah, they somehow did it and you don't need to see it. And I'm like, if they had more time, they could have probably done that. So those are the moments that I'm like, okay. But yeah, let's talk about some cool scenes in this. They fight a dragon. That's a really cool moment. What else happens? I always have a hard time remembering exactly what happens. The dragon fight, the actual war, like the actual final war sort of thing, where they're all coming across the bridge and they're all having the clash, and all the different character model like armies are all clashing. Because some of the whatever they're called, Aesir, oh no, that's the Veneer people. A lot of their designs are cool. Also, I like the Valkyrie design where they're just naked angel women. It's funny. Again, just got to put boobs and tits in, like, boobs and tits. They're the same thing. Boobs and puss. Even though you don't see puss a lot. It's mostly just hairy patching work down there. And all the dicks are funny because they're all just like tubes, which is what a dick is. But it's just funny to see an animated dick. Because they always look so funny. Because it's always funny to see what size they give people because you have to draw it. So like for Odin and all, like the main guy, it's like, oh, they're working with a little chub, or oh, they're working with a long one. It's just like, okay. You never really see it much, because men find it weird. But okay, let's talk. Okay, so Wolf Guy is my favorite character, but Loki in this really cool because this version of Loki has so much depth to them that you don't see a lot of the time. Like, I think probably the closest one you probably see in like modern media is Loki in Marvel, but this is a very different take on Loki. He's still the trickster. He's still scheming. He's got his kids. You see the like. They tell like all the North mythology things of him like fucking a horse to trick the guy who's building the wall. You see his like Fenrir and Hel and all of that, like all his kids basically. And he's basically trying to stop the prophecy because in the prophecy, his daughter, the serpent sea lady one, dies in it. And his kids are basically bound and chained and all of these things. So he's trying to change the prophecy. So he needs Sigrid to kill Thor to basically reset and bring about a new era of gods and kill the old gods. And this is where it gets crazy, because Jesus Christ is in this. Speaking of previous religions, like new modern religions, Zack Snyder loves his Jesus. So Jesus is in this as like a flash forward into the future. So you get modern times and you get the gods being worshipped that are no longer worshipped as the Norse gods. You get modern day Jesus Christ being worshipped. So that's Odin's future, is no one will worship him anymore. People will worship Jesus Christ. So you're like, that came out of nowhere, I guess. It makes sense in terms of timeline of the actual real world, but it's just funny as like a concept to just suddenly have Jesus Christ in your animated thing about Norse gods as the "this is why you die" moment. And then, so you also get like a load of battles where Thor just turns up and absolutely decimates people, and then again, like I said, it just kind of goes, yep, you can get out of this. Because Thor doesn't even remember killing, or doesn't even care that he killed, because he doesn't know who she is, because his brother, the gold guy, I can't remember his name, I don't remember which one he is, they're all stupid names. He says that she's dead, or that there were no survivors at the aftermath. And so he doesn't even clock because he just kills people for the sake of it. And it's revealed that he ends up banging the epitome of defeat, like the embodiment of defeat and stuff like that. He ends up banging Loki's sea serpent daughter because that's part of Loki's plan or something like that, or part of the prophecy. I don't remember. It's good. I keep putting nitpicks in it, but like it is a good show. Like, there's so much good stuff in this. Like, the action scenes, when they happen, are really good. They're fluid. They have nice dynamic, like, action in it. You can clearly tell people have different skill sets. You've got, like, the archer. You've got the swords people, the spear people. You got the magic people. Like, there's some cool stuff that happens. But yeah, it's just some of the decisions of how they get around, like, certain story elements. Like there's the Egil guy again. He's like a player, and the witch lady doesn't like him, I guess, at the beginning, but then 2 seconds later she's like, I bought you a drink, and then he's chatting to someone and she's like, and then the next thing they're like getting together, and then it's like, okay. Also, the only character that I was kind of like, they really didn't have much going on is Sigrid's friend, lady friend, who comes along, and for no real reason, you don't really get like a sense that they like. You get like the sense that they're friends, but she's not grown up with her, so they're just kind of like women because they're strong women friends, which is fine. But she's basically going on it because she likes Sigrid and she wants to fight. And then you get the backstory of her kids are dead, and she wants to go see them in Valhalla, and she worries that if she does this and she kills the gods, will she be able to see her kids in Valhalla? And the twist it's not a twist. It's basically stated. When they go see the dwarf guy, the weapons that they take have a price, and because they're cursed, basically. And so when this character dies in a really whatever way, because what annoys me is they have, so Thor comes in basically trying to kill Sigrid at the end, and then Wolf guy who comes in takes Thor's hammer like twice or something, gets basically, I don't know, killed because it's not shown. He basically transforms back into human, but is either dead or just passes out. So I assume he's still alive because they don't explicitly state that he's dead. And if you don't see it, you don't know. And like you can always bring him back. But they basically then have the female friend die, also protecting Sigrid. And then Thor fights Loki or gets swarmed by a bunch of people for a bit. And so this big dramatic moment of like her begging for the Valkyries to take her friend to Valhalla because she wants to see her sons again. And then it turns out that because she took the cursed sword and because the gods don't care, like they're not worth being whatnot, she gets dragged down to Hell, where Loki's daughter, Hel, runs Hell. And she goes, don't worry, no false gods or whatever will watch over you anymore. And stuff like that. So it's meant to be like, oh yeah, they're cunts anyway, and your kids were like in an endless war, basically, when they go to Valhalla. So, I don't know. It just felt weird that they took that moment for a character who only really had so much stuff to do that they gave her a funeral, essentially, or like a moment, because they wanted the poignant, like, thing. The only real thing is she'd had like one moment where she takes drugs and she runs through a forest and has like a moment. That's really it. Like everything else is more Sigrid, everyone else, the king, like they go into the head, and like that character's just kind of there as the friend, but you don't really get anything out of them except that she has kids who are dead. So it's just weird that the one moment they decided to do the wolf guy's done so much more in the previous stuff. She's kind of a good fighter, but not the best out of all of them. She's probably the worst one, except maybe the Archer girl, but the Archer girl then learns to be really good. So you're like, oh, okay. But yeah, so it's just a weird moment. Other than that, I don't know more. I don't want to spoil too much, because I think people should go see this. There's so much more that I could probably say. But I think people should definitely go check this out. Out of all the stuff I've seen of Zack Snyder's, I do think this is probably the best. It's the one I've enjoyed the most, and it does set itself up for a sequel, or like a season 2, because essentially, I won't spoil the end. I won't tell you what happens at the end, because there's some stuff, there's some revelations, there's the Jesus stuff, but that's not really the end of it. I wonder if this did get a season 2, you would get these characters maybe seeing the future of like, oh, this is how all religion and all the future stuff comes out. Who knows? But yeah, really enjoyed it. I think it's definitely worth a watch if you haven't. If me telling you a lot of stuff that happens in it, there's so much more. I don't want to go into all the details. I don't want to go by point. I just wanted to talk about some of the cool things. I think the animation is really cool. All the characters are really good designs. A lot of the characters have depth to them, like the main ones. You do feel for these characters a lot of the time. You do also understand where a lot of the villains come from as well. Like, Thor is just destructive, but then they have an episode where you kind of get the backstory of why he does it. But again, it's just nice to see, like, brutal, like, gods killing, like, they don't stand a chance a lot of the time against these people. Like, even with an army, Thor could wipe out an army. And it's that sense of, like, destruction against, like, an unstoppable being, but people rallying up and getting it. It just kind of, it struggles with that, how do they get out of that without it being unsatisfying? Because it's just, this unstoppable thing is coming towards us. Cut to the next scene. Oh, we got away. That sort of thing. That's the only thing I noticed, and it annoyed me. I keep harping on about it because it irked me. That's why I can't give it like a perfect score. because there were just some bits that kind of some flaws. But yeah, other than that, really good. I think probably a solid 7.5 out of 10. Like, I can't give it the best thing I've ever seen, but I think for the animation, the brutality of it, it's a good story. I think those give it a solid like leg up against some other stuff. And I don't know how well it's doing, but yeah, ultimately, yeah, I think there's some really good moments in it, and I think it's definitely worth your time if you haven't watched it. Anyway, thank you for listening. Next week probably will be Futurama, but it also may be Megalopolis if I actually go watch that, because that movie seems really like a train wreck, but it also could be the best movie ever. Who knows? I kind of want to watch it just on that basis alone. So you might get two. You might get Futurama with Dan, and then at the end, maybe a quick review, depending on if I end up seeing it on Megalopolis. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye!